On January the 13th, Keir Starmer said AI, it's the opportunity of our generation. But watching the news, you'd think the UK is in decline, struggling, falling behind, and losing its edge on the global stage. That's just not what I've found. Speaking to Stephen Warwick, a technology executive, a co-chair of the Confederation of British Industry, and a Trustee Board Member at AbilityNet, I feel more optimistic than ever about Britain's future. We have world-class universities and students hungry for innovation. We have some of the brightest tech and business minds shaping the future. Britain isn't lagging, it's leading. And what excites me most is AI for the people. Elevating the population, elevating business, elevating social structures, and creating inclusivity like we've never seen before. Empowering individuals and augmenting humanity to take us all to a better place. If you've been feeling down about Britain's future, this is a must-watch video. The future of Britain is great.
Baseline.
Our role is to advise government on what we believe is happening with innovation in the United Kingdom. Things like the apprenticeship levy was something that the CBI was involved in.
The baseline is designed to create an emotional response.
I've seen things you won't believe.
More human than human.
Make you question everything.
We underestimate how enterprise technology is a dark art and not understood by most people. And you and I have worked in this space for decades.
Yeah.
In data centers, in big companies, in boardrooms, in architecture teams, helping big companies build systems to provide services to the global population.
Yeah.
And 99.9% of people aren't aware of what we do. And to us, we take it for granted that the words we use, the acronyms we use, the technology we talk about, things we build, we take it for granted that people do, but they don't.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it comes down to that. When you're working at that enterprise level scale, it's about the compute, the network, and the storage. It's about the application. You're working throughout the whole kind of stack, so to speak. And a lot of that stack is under the ground. You can't see it, but that's where a lot of the value is.
Huge value. But what I've realised, working on YouTube and accessing the general population, just the opportunity to democratise access to the information and the insights and the decisions that are being made by businesses and governments and hospitals and military to how they're using technology, is brilliant. I'm really enjoying surfacing that type of transparency.
Yeah.
And it's stuff that we've talked about for years, but most people aren't aware of what is actually going on.
And if you look at some of the technologies out there, there's products out there that are like 25 years young that underpin probably plus 95% of the world's financial transactions, whether it's card, whether it's phone, whether it's,
What are they?
Well, a lot of the middleware technologies.
What is middle? I've got to be so annoying today. Let's just strip it right back. Tell me a little bit about middleware and the things that you've built that so people understand.
Yeah, I think so. One of the technologies that I was involved in maturing and evolving the actual technology when I got the gig was MQ. It's called Message Queue. It's used in pretty much every financial customer globally. And it's a piece of technology that its simplicity is its beauty. And it's just a point-to-point asynchronous transaction processing. And it can run on distributed systems, i.e. it can run on mainframes. It can run pretty much anywhere. And with OpenShift is the platform layer, You can now build once and then run it anywhere. So we've got customers that are running on IBM Cloud, Amazon, Azure, all the big cloud providers. But MQ is the transaction processing layer that moves money around.
So when you walk through London, you will walk past thousands of people, and every single one of those people, and they don't know who you are, but they're benefiting and interacting with things that you have been directly and indirectly associated with building, implementing, installing. But people like you walk among us, and we use the services that you've been a component of every day of our lives. We trust the systems that run the ambulances. We trust the banking is safe and secure and our privacy. But we don't know. And I think it's like seeing what's happened in the US where tech bros are starting to become, serious influencers on political narrative.
Yeah.
Just this ability to have a conversation with you and share this stuff, specifically around AI, I think is a really good opportunity for us to get a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think I loved what you said earlier about the complexity of enterprise technology. Yep, you can have an app on your phone, right? And you can interact with your app. But that app at some point is connected to maybe a VPN, which then connects to a network, which then connects to a database, which then connects to compute. And all of those things have to tie together. And the only way you can get that skill of enterprise level scale is to get your sleeves rolled up when something doesn't work. And you can't get into a position where my app's working, but it might be really bad latency. So you have to unpick and go to the network. And as yourself, and I know you're an engineer yourself, Ian, and it's only when you get involved in something when it doesn't work that you actually really start to learn about how enterprise scale systems work. Yeah.
I'm loving learning again.
Yeah.
Again, I think that, got to a point in my life where I was like, I think I know it all. And then there was a phase of probably, between the first and second mountain. And then out of the mist appears this mountain and you realise, I actually know nothing. Especially with the rate in which AI and generative AI and, algorithms are evolving. I kind of feel like every week I step forward a step, but the industry steps forward 2 steps. So just treading water in this world of artificial intelligence takes a lot of effort.
It does. And if you think about it in terms of augmented intelligence, even though sometimes it does feel like you're taking 1 step, the industry is moving 2, use the second step to help you. And I always tell my people, are you embracing using Watson X for your own daily lives? And at work they've rolled out a thing called Ask IBM or Ask HR or Ask IT. It's all underpinned by Watson X. And I use it every single day. Every single day. Right? Show me where I can find this. Help me with that.
Summarising, searching. Just in the last few months, Baseline's given me a phenomenal opportunity to get involved in discussions around the application of AI in government, and supporting frontline workers in the NHS, military applications, efficiency applications, privacy. I am building this very strong belief in AI for the people.
Yeah.
And how does AI elevate our population? Everybody, not just the tech leaders, everybody. And I've been very fortunate enough to meet a number of people. Just yesterday, Nick Bray, CBE, who's doing some amazing work at a company called Vantic. They're, applying AI across all sorts of different automation cases. And Nick, amazing history in the armed forces. And I'm meeting a lot of CBEs and OBEs, and I kind of see you at that level. But you've been someone who's just grafted away in the shadows. But you do a lot of work in government and supporting business in the UK. Maybe a lot of people won't have heard about the CBI. Could you just talk through that and maybe get into a bit of detail on what that does and its purpose?
Yeah, it's an honour to be part of the CBI for me. I was a council member for many years. Then I was a chair.
What is the CBI?
It's the Confederation of British Industry. and it's basically the voice of British industry to government. You could also think like Tech UK, if you've heard of Tech UK, that's another type of body. And what our role is to advise government on what we believe is happening with innovation in the United Kingdom. Things like the apprenticeship levy was something that the CBI was involved in. And how could we help make that a lot better for UK businesses? R&D tax credits is another one. How can we make that better for UK businesses? One of the conversations that we had probably a couple of board meetings ago is how can we make sure that innovators in the UK are keeping their IP in the United Kingdom? Brilliant discussion.
Isn't it?
It was a fantastic discussion, and it was all about, and represented on the board, there were a number of startups, and it all comes down to the levels of risk that UK investors are prepared to put in. As yourself, serial entrepreneur, it's all about how do you keep the IP in this country, so you scale the business in this country, so you put more jobs in this country, and then grow the GDP of the country. And how can we advise government on making that a reality so people don't have to source investment from the US or whatever country it is? They're the types of things that we get involved in. And like I say, it's a brilliant board. It's made up of corporates and startups and scale-outs. It's represented by a number of the leading innovation universities. And yeah, we meet once a quarter. And we have a number of people from government come and speak to us. And they will come and talk to us about what's on their agenda. We had the new head of DSIT come and join us a little while ago. And they talked about what their policy is going to be, what their strategy is going to be. And it was really good to get that insight into where the government's head. And I'd like to say that it seems pretty aligned. It's all about growth in the country. Yeah.
How is it for you to try and chair a meeting of all those people? It sounds like there's some big dogs in there, probably some strong opinions, some very, very capable and proven people. That sounds like quite a challenge. How do you approach that?
I look at it not so much as a challenge, but an opportunity to encourage healthy debate. And my role, and the person I co-chair, our role is one, if the room goes slightly quiet, it's get a question out there, get the conversation going. I'm quite fortunate that a lot of people around the table are all kind of technology based. So they're just as passionate about this industry and growing this industry as myself. The other part of the role is to encourage that healthy interaction and healthy conversation. One of the things we do have to do as well is keep on time, because you can always, there's a lot to cover in the 2 hours at the meeting. So keeping on time is that's probably one of the hardest.
The first APPG I went to, the All Party Parliamentary Group, the one resounding memory I took from that, Steve, was what limited time we have to actually create governance for the country. And it was, a 2-hour call. It kind of went like that. It was so easy to get derailed from the core purpose.
Yeah.
And it made me think how, when you're trying to create governance at a country or, global level, the time is the challenge.
Something that I certainly learned when I was a council member, you've got to read the briefing pack. If you think that you can go into one of these meetings and just kind of wing it,
no.
You can't.
No.
Because you're adding zero value.
Yeah.
You're adding zero value, except for being part of a conversation. And I'm now speaking to people who are on the council, and we talk, and I always say, do your homework. Even if you just do it on the train on the way in or the night before, just make sure you get yourself well versed of what the outcomes of the conversation and debate need to look like. Because then you can go in with a point of view. And it's very difficult to go into one of these meetings with a point of view if you don't know what the point is, So even myself, I study the materials quite heavily. Probably when they get sent out about 5 days before the meeting. Every day I skim it. Just every day I skim it over and over and over again. So that when I get into the meeting, my head's in the right space about what do we want to do here. Because everybody, like you say, there's some very senior technology influencers around that table. I've got to make sure it's a good use of their time too.
How do you see, as you're talking, I already start to think about using AI tools to help summarize information, to kind of do augmented learning and cognitive positioning. You almost have this process of just skim and a skim and a skim, and it starts to frame this perception and preparedness for the meeting.
Well, yeah, there are AI tools out there that I will use to basically put the documentation into a podcast like we're doing now. And the particular AI tools out there will automatically generate a podcast for me. I just listen to it when I'm on the run or in the gym. So you can start to subliminally digest the data and get the data into your thing. And that's how I certainly use AI in my daily life, is getting prepared for meetings.
And as part of the CBI, how has your perspective on AI in enterprise and government evolved?
Can you remember when virtualization hit the scene and people were creating images and we got image sprawl, you remember? And there were many businesses that spun up and exited to manage image sprawl of people just being able to snapshot an image, right? I think we're going to get ML sprawl. And I think if you look at the cloud disruption, when cloud hit the scene, people thought, we were only going to have one cloud. But actually the reality is now is most companies have 3 clouds, hybrid cloud, for example. I think we're going to see the same shift and the same pattern, because you can spin up models so quickly now. Like you said, every day there's another model out there. Every day someone's interacting. And I think that enterprises are going to start to look at themselves and say, right, I need to get control over what machine learning I've got in my data centers or in my team or in my company, because which ones are governed, which ones have got the right governance, which ones are part of the right, like an IT, your IT shop in your business will have certain practices and standards that they have to adhere to for regulation. You want to make sure that the AI that's being offered in your company is through them and not just somebody downloading it off the internet, maybe not knowing what they're doing. So I think that this machine learning sprawl is going to be big. I also think as well is, if you do look at some of the things like what DeepSeek have done, and I will touch on it very briefly, that they've proven that small language models are where it's at. And yes, you can have large language models, but the world is moving more towards smaller language models for all of the reasons. Just large compute, large cost, right? But they've done something where they can do it on pretty cost-effective chips.
The whole LLM emergence and its speed. There's always going to be collateral damage and mess when you're rushing for innovation. I was at the London Stock Exchange last week, and there was a guy, Christian Cass, who was presenting from a company called Vertex. And it was this one-line API that documents the whole LLM automatically. It gives out a report. I don't think there are standard. My question to him was, look, with APIs we have like standard agreed documentation formats and standard terms. Keys. I don't think we're there yet with LLM. So this guy's ahead. His business is ahead in terms of building a very easy system to allow companies to build language models, small, large, medium, but then instantly document them and bring transparency so they can be used in effective ways. I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, I'm certainly seeing a lot more of the big institutions, the big brands, start to say, we've chosen this language model, but can we use IBM's governance? Because we know that IBM's the most trusted with data. And so I'm seeing a lot of people saying, I want to use IBM's governance, but I want to have a freedom of choice around my models. And the answer is yes, of course you can.
Are you hopeful for the UK's industry?
Yes. I think if you look at not just our universities, we've touched on this before, I didn't go to university, I did an apprenticeship. But if you look at the education system and the universities we've got, they're world class. And I think if you look at the computing and the mathematician side of what we do with academia, both as an apprentice and non-apprentice, if you're going to go the university route, they're world leading, world class. So I am very, very hopeful. And I think it ties back to what we said earlier. If we can keep the young innovators or new innovators, right, who's got sparked re-interest in the industry, in this country, working, then I'm very hopeful for the UK.
Do you think you were disadvantaged by not having a university degree?
No, because I knew that the way that I learn, different people learn in different ways. You called me a grafter earlier.
You are a grafter. And some of the funniest stories that we share are from the early stages of both your and my career.
Yeah.
When I was cable and data centers.
Yeah.
You were
Cable in studios.
Yeah, but where were you? You were at some aerospace.
Yeah, we were building and testing the jet engines and the control systems that control jet engines.
Yeah,
on oil rigs.
Took the apprentice in there. Tony, we'll leave this one to the apprentice. It's quite hot in that room.
Put the apprentice on the oil rig, right?
That's it. Yeah, but like that's why that is an environment of pure learning and joy for me.
Yeah, and some people learn through study and tests, and I learn much more practically. I'm a practical learner. I have to fix it. I have to see it working. I remember as a kid I used to take things apart and put them back together just to see how they worked. So I don't believe it disadvantaged me because of the way that I learn. Whereas my own son is an example, academic, loves to read the manual, loves to read the books. I would skim through an instruction manual, but I needed to see how it worked with my hands and visualize it. Yeah.
So even if we talk about the augmentation of engineering and frontline workers with AI, the human brain and its need to understand this natural curiosity to learn, even if we're augmented with a AI instruction manual to kind of guide us through a physical process, that's not going to take away the curiosity and hunger to learn and understand the job.
I agree wholeheartedly. I was out for dinner last night and we were having this conversation. Because I know you, and I've known you for 15 plus years, if you sent me an email from Ian, I'd be like, yep. If you got a particular AI
Straight to junk.
Delete. No, but if you got if you sent me an email that you'd used AI, I absolutely know it would have been AI. Because I know your tone, I know your sentiment, I know how you wrote emails. And the AI would have to personalise itself to you, very good for me to not be able to tell. And I think that if you use it to augment what you're doing, it's all good. If you use it to replace, then it's not as authentic. It's not as authentic.
I think that what I would say is, though, that like I'm putting my radio voice on, there are formal communications that I do where I do that I wouldn't be in the same language and words that I would use to email you.
Yeah.
Or even if I was emailing you, if I was texting you, I'd speak in a certain way. If I was emailing you in a work context, it would be a different format and function of language.
Yeah.
So, there are places I would use it, but that's because we don't all communicate the same way to everybody at the same time, do we?
No, and I certainly, within a work environment, like I say, IBM have been very good at embracing its own AI technology for the benefit of IBMers. And I use it multiple times a day.
I find it gives me confidence. So say if I'm going into a negotiation, or I'm even Baseline's given me an amazing opportunity to meet people. Hugh Jones, he's the head of AI automation project at Lloyds Bank, and I was connected with my friend Glenn Cook, who's at Argent X, the biotum, and they were talking about RLHF, reinforcement learning through human feedback, and I thought these guys need to speak to each other.
Yeah, I like that.
And because Hugh's an expert, Glenn's into this data governance space, this would just be a great conversation. And I thought, it's a bit socially awkward. I'll check with both of them. They want to be introduced to do. That's going to be okay. And then I quickly used ChatGPT just to support me, just create a nice little contextual email. It pulled a little bit of their histories, did it in 2 seconds. And for me, I could have easily overthought that introduction, and I'll come back to it later on. Instead, I had a really nice, warm email generated in a couple of seconds, done. And I really hope, and I don't want anything out of this. I just want them to meet because I think it'd be brilliant. But it was just a little way where I used a little bit of augmentation just to give me the confidence, just to do it.
Yeah.
Do you know?
And one thing that you can do, I've done this as well. Sometimes when you write an email, could be in a professional or personal setting, just run it through an AI model and do a bit of sentiment analysis on it. Are you getting the right sentiment across that you want to get across? Is it happy? Is it sad? Is it, and I think running it through a sentiment analysis tool, that helps give me the confidence, especially if I'm meeting somebody new and I'm going to be introducing myself to them for the first time. Again, like I said, I reckon even 2-3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, when you or I would go on a customer trip, you'd get a bio done about the person you're going to meet, the company, notes on the company. I get that all AI generated Watson now. I don't ask somebody, I don't pull together, say, a Word document on that. I run their LinkedIn profile, I run stats on their web page, on their I run it through that, and then it automatically generates my briefing pack. Like I said, I run that through a particular model, get a podcast generated, and then I listen to it on the plane.
Oh, this to your point on preparing for the CBI meetings. This is where and this actually brings together 2 points that we've talked about. What it means is your time with that person is just so much more productive and optimized.
Oh, unbelievable. I'll give you a great example. We embedded AI into a lot of our HR processes at work. And it means now the time that I get with a HR professional is of so much more value than maybe doing something that's a highly repetitive task for the HR person that doesn't even go anywhere near the expertise that they have to help with very complicated processes. So we've removed so much of that kind of repetitive work to get more value out of the HR team. Yeah.
Have you had any hallucinations, or do you, like, a lot of people feel as though there's risk at the moment trying to introduce AI to processes? I mean, you're operating at scale with AI. What's your degree of comfort that you can evolve this to be repeatable, stable, predictable?
It's understanding the use cases you're going after, I think. If you've got a team of, 100 HR people, and those 100 HR people are all doing the same task in different divisions multiple times a day, makes absolute sense to automate that process. And I think automation is the first step. And you can't get to augmentating your processes with AI unless you've got your data sets integrated, you understand what you're going to try and do with the automation, and then you can build the model to help with that automation.
And you've mentioned Watson. So I would say most people out there know about ChatGPT.
Of course, yeah.
Some people, I would say, know about Claude. I think Gemini is pushed heavily in just the Google search response now. So some people are probably aware that Google are doing something there. Watson doesn't have a consumer face. So, and the irony is Watson's been around a lot longer, although that brand, in terms of machine learning and prescriptive analytics, has been around a lot longer. How do IBM make Watson relevant?
I think it is relevant. And it comes back to the very, very point we chatted about at the beginning. Just because you can't see it, it doesn't mean it's not being there. It's not being used and it's not there. Many of the top enterprises use Watson every single day to help govern their AI models. Many enterprises out there and business partners are using Watson every single day to help what they're doing in their business. So just because it doesn't have a consumer interface, it doesn't mean it's not there.
Does tech need to be in the consumer eye to be successful?
Do you know, I had this conversation with somebody a couple of weeks ago. I don't believe it does. We use technology every single day that's not in the eye, right?
But Elon, look at Elon Musk. What he's perfected is tech in the public eye. PayPal, Tesla, SpaceX. SpaceX is in the public eye. They do, like, it's not marketing, it's entertainment. Do you know, I mean, I remember when Starship launched for the first time, mate, my son were on the train watching, it on the iPhone with the hairs standing up on the back of our necks as Starship was launching. Do you know, it's entertainment, Steve. And I'm trying to work out whether the power of Meta, Amazon, Elon, Sam Altman at OpenAI, its integration into US governance and tech becoming a part of, leadership.
Do you reckon there's something around?
Does tech need to be in the public eye to be relevant?
I think if you look at how long IBM's been around, it's always there. You might not know it's there. It's there. It's helping everybody every single day with what we build. Some of the stuff that's in the public eye is more seasonal. It's fashionable sometimes, comes in and out. But all of those things that you just mentioned will connect to IBM at some point.
Do you think IBM needs to emerge into the public eye?
To have a consumer interface?
Not necessarily from a tech perspective, but I did a podcast recently with Vabes at IFS. IFS is another one of these companies, not at the scale of IBM, but multi-billion dollar valuation, private company, integrated into airplanes, airplane engines. The technology is not exciting technology. It's workload scheduling, it's asset management. I know IBM have amazing products in that space. And I was talking to their head of media. They've got 350,000 followers on LinkedIn, get very, very little engagement, single-digit thumbs up kind of thing. And a few people have watched my podcast and said, I've never heard of IFS. And I say, what a strange dynamic. This is a company doing billions in revenue, integrated into services and systems, oil rigs, airplanes, etc. But when you speak to people on, the 2.5 billion people on YouTube, they're just not aware. Why are they not picking up on that information? Why is that brand not? Does it need to be? Are we all are we all involved in buying decisions in businesses? Now I'm trying to work out. There just seems to be a lot of confusion around.
Yeah, I think
who's doing what.
Yeah, and I think if you were to talk to somebody who buys, they know exactly what it's like. And with a picture of the car on the wall, you know who makes that car, but you probably might not know who makes the water pump. Do you need to know?
I think it's Bosch.
Yeah.
And as me and you have had many hours discussing rubber engine mounts versus metal engine mounts in various 911 engine architectures. But I think we're both over that world, aren't we?
To go out with, by the way.
I think we're both over it.
Yeah.
I think we're both over it.
Yeah, definitely.
I have loved Porsche 911s for a long time. I like my van now. I like my van. Don't know what is it. Something
your use case has changed.
It has, yeah.
Your use case has changed, right? Yeah.
Bikes and children and footballs.
Yeah. Don't fit in 911s.
No. No. It's a beautiful design. But a design that probably shouldn't be so good as it is or compelling as it is. Who would put the engine at the back of a car?
The reason I wanted to point the conversation at the car is because the original design of that car hasn't changed at all.
Yeah.
It's just evolved. So when we talk about what you said about consumers and stuff, they've kept to the basic principles of doing something and doing it really well. And that's what IBM does. It does it very well. So that's why a lot of enterprises and big scale brands and startups as well are coming to IBM for their AI, the AI governance, but also we understand enterprise scale and we evolve it. Yeah.
I think the one thing with IBM is the excellence of engineering.
Yeah, most definitely.
Whether it's in the public eye or not, or whether you like its social media presence, irrelevant. Because with an IBM product, the quality and attention to detail within the engineering is on a different. It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah,
some may even say over-engineered.
And had this conversation with my son, and there's a difference between a developer and a software engineer. and I stand my ground on that. You know, a good developer will know how to code. A good developer can code very well, very fast. Software engineer understands what we talked about. The end to end. How is my application that I've developed going to have an impact on network latency? How is the application that I've developed or microservices-based app going to have an impact on compute? Some developers, that's somebody else's problem. A software engineer thinks about that problem before they write a line of code. And what you find in IBM is we have some of the best software engineers I've ever worked with in my career. Yeah.
You led IBM Hursley,
Yeah.
which is a centre of excellence for, I would say, academic and vocational engineering. Some of the most successful global products at IBM have come out of Hursley.
Yeah.
And it's an innovation centre in the UK, something we should be extremely proud of. Does Hursley continue to stay relevant?
Absolutely. And the way that Hursley continues to be relevant is because we continuously focus on upskilling the team there. And certainly even myself and all of, you've met Al, my boss, Al. All of his senior leadership team, of which I'm proud to be part of, are level 4 in terms of our ability to, with AI and other technologies. So level 4 is the kind of the deepest or the most technical level of our internal education and upskilling programs. And he makes sure, and I make sure all of my leadership team are all level 4 certified. And that is just it's just a quick point of view on why we believe that upskilling ourselves is so important. 2 steps forward. You don't want to be no steps back. 1 step forward's good.
Over the last few years, we've seen IBM embrace open.
Yeah.
Red Hat
Yeah.
being, probably one of the largest acquisitions IBM's done. I'm thinking, to embrace the open platforms that run cloud and run these enterprise businesses. And also, the IBM Watson X platform has certainly championed.
It's open by design.
It totally championed the adoption of open language models and that for customers. Maybe take me a little bit through what your perception of open means to the customer and what that means to people so they understand the difference in open and proprietary models. And then I'd love to get into a bit more on the AI aspects on the open strategy.
Yeah, and I think being open by design is the right way to go.
Has that DNA come from Red Hat?
No, IBM have been involved in open source before Red Hat. We had a number of projects that were open sourced. And to kind of help answer the question between proprietary and open, proprietary, in my mind, is something that a particular company builds, it innovates, it evolves, and it sells. Whereas open source is more generated by a community of people. And then you can have contributors to the open source project, and you can have committers. Think of committers as those people that can check in the code. So if I'm contributing to an open source project and I've built a widget, I've built something, I can then give it to the community, and then there's only a certain amount of people who can actually commit it as a feature function of the open source. And I think that if you're going to pick an open source project, definitely look to the things like Red Hat, because they've got such a big following of, you're not going to back something that might be out of favour and doesn't have the support and the community behind it to keep it going. So open source normally needs a decent community to keep it going, which is why Red Hat has just been such an excellent acquisition for IBM.
And is all this on like Discord and GitHub? Are these things that young people and anybody looking to get into engineering should be a part of?
Yeah. I was at a careers fair and I was talking to the kids, around 12 years old. And I was saying, what are you doing with technology and how are you embracing technology? And all of them are using open source projects for their own schoolwork. And they talked to me about Java, JavaScript. They talked about Python. They talked about Scratch. They talked about all of these open source projects. So even academia and schools are embracing open source rather than going to a particular software vendor to help buy their pack, because they know that as these kids develop into young engineers, open source is now part of the DNA of their thinking.
Is there a worry that when those people get into their age, like in 6 years when they're coming into the workforce, that AI will be doing all of software development?
No, I don't have a worry with that. I don't think it's a replacement strategy. I think, as we've mentioned, it's an augmentation strategy. Can a developer or a software engineer, because both roles are very relevant, or a designer start to use AI to give inspiration or thought processes or just even a layout structure where they don't have to think about that stuff that they probably won't find is too taxing on the brain, and then they can apply their whole thinking and their whole selves to actually what they've got to do. So I think, again, even in the role of the engineer, it will help augment.
Are there any roles that you would discourage people from getting into because your perception that AI will predominantly take over those roles?
Not that I can think of. I remember when cloud came along, and a lot of people would, especially people in the IT teams, were like, "This is going to replace my role," when actually it just changed the shape of the role. I remember I was running multiple data centers at that time when cloud and virtualization come about. We used to have people that were managing ticket queues. So say I'm a line of business, you're an IT shop. I would say, Ian, I need a VPN created, or I need another PC configured, or I need another virtual machine. That would come to you in the form of a ticket, of ServiceNow, or whatever the ticket would be. When I could automatically get my own VMs and I could automatically do that, didn't mean your job went away. You now managed an image library instead of managing ticket queues. You upskilled and evolved to where the use case that I needed was. And I think that's going to be the same. People are just going to evolve and upskill. What I will say is those people that upskill and learn how to embrace AI will definitely be more recruitable in the future. To those people that think, I'm just going to ignore this and it's going to go away.
Do you know, I think there's a whole group of untapped talent, certainly in this country, where people are maybe inhibited by anxiety or nerves about returning to work. You know, they look at the frame of the world through social media and it can be quite intimidating. Things are moving so quickly. And for whatever reason, they're looking at the world. It could be, issues with their own self-esteem. If AI augmentation can help them send that email, help them write that CV, help them learn about Discord, learn about basics of coding, learn about AI, get them over time start to allow them to skim complex information that traditionally would have been quite intimidating. It's got to be a good thing.
I think so too.
It has to be a good thing.
I think so too. And I think there are so many more positives to what AI can be used for. That's a great example you used there. Somebody might not have a lot of confidence. And they might not have that confidence, or they may they may have a condition that prevents them from just being able to reach out and apply for a role. If you can just use AI just to get them started.
Well, disabilities have always been quite an intimidator of people, whether it be physical impairment, visual impairment. The internet has opened up opportunity for everybody. This idea of moving to much more inclusive workspaces and social systems. How could AI help there? Are there who's doing stuff there to support inclusivity of people, maybe with physical or, physiological or psychological challenges or diversity?
We're working with many companies at the moment to help with just the basic things around even using AI to help monitor people's patterns. So the elderly can be quite habitual in terms of movement. And some companies, instead of sending somebody out, you can just wear a little brooch now, which can track the movement of the person. And then you can start to run it through models, and you can start to predict and start to say, well, if that person hasn't moved,
Interesting.
to make a cup of tea in the morning.
Classic machine learning, isn't it?
Classic.
Pattern matching.
Yeah, and what's really interesting in this as well is we always go for the super techie, super engineered use cases, but actually the application of AI can be used for the most basic of use case and still give tremendous advantage. Certainly in the processes of like an RFP, wouldn't it be good if you could search? And instead of rewriting an RFP, you could say, oh, we've done one of these before. This is just an evolution with the same customer. And then you can save a bit of time.
As I understand, you do some support in disabled charities. You're probably too humble to bring it up, so I'll bring it up. So as well as the work you do for IBM and CBI, you're working to support some charities. I wonder, you'd maybe share a little bit about the challenges and what problems those charities are trying to address, and maybe how AI could play to supporting them.
Recently, I was asked to become trustee of the board for a particular charity that works with disabled people and elderly people as well, and neurodivergent people. And what was really good about being part of that meeting is everybody around the table was there because they wanted to be, and because they felt like they could contribute and add value. And my role around the table was not just so much from the technology angle, but also how do we embrace technology to help run the charity more efficient? How do we embrace technology such as AI to help generate a marketing campaign for that particular charity? Yep, they may hire in external companies, which is fine. How do we make sure the company that's coming in to run a marketing campaign are leveraging AI? And some of our own, even at IBM's marketing campaigns, when we support particular events, we absolutely embrace AI to help us out with that. So it can get you a different perspective and a greater reach. Because again, you're automating a lot of the tasks that would be pretty manual. So what I'm really excited about working with the charity is some of the processes there are still very paper-based. How can we start to get that more automated? How can we start to put that through models? So the person who the charity are trying to serve actually understands that they can get access to the information they need a lot quicker. And one of the things we're working on right now is the user experience of how you interact with a charity. How can we evolve that? Yeah.
Back in the early 90s, I was a kayak instructor in the Lake District. And groups would come up from schools around the UK. And sometimes they would bring, they used to call them difficult kids in the early 90s. They called them difficult kids. I don't think, there was no concept of neurodiversity. It was just difficult kids.
And do you know what? That's just how far we've come, right?
Oh, thank God we've progressed in our understanding on how to treat these things. Yeah. But I'll never forget, there was one lad, I'll be in my early mid-teens maybe. I was British Canoe Union certified senior instructor, used to love the kayaking. Would take them out. We used to have great sessions. They would tire them out, they'd have a great time, bit of teamwork on the water. It was fantastic. There was one time a group, and they all came, and there was one lad, he must have been 6'3". He was big. And he said, he was the big alpha. And he was kind of like, not bullying the others, but he was certainly dominating this group of about 15 kids. And when we got them on the water, I could see he was very nervous and he was very tense. And I'll never forget this, because I remember I always used to be kayaking, just get people to relax their bodies, let the water move the body. If you relaxed your body, it would kind of go with if you were stiff and you were moving around.
You got to go with the flow.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to go with the flow.
We're on Derwent water, and they're all starting to relax and splash about. And I saw this lad, and he'd kind of floated into like a bit of a bush on the side where there were a few sticks. And I thought, I'll go on. I kayaked over and give a pull on the back of the canoe, and it didn't come out. I thought, what's happened? He's stuck. I said, are you all right? And he, I said, are you coming out? I'll pull you out. He's like, And I moved up beside him, and he'd bit onto a branch. And he said, I'm so frightened, I don't want to let go of this branch. He was so terrified of the water. So I snapped the branch off and pulled him out. And for the next 20 minutes, he kayaked around with this branch in his mouth. He had a great session, absolutely brilliant. And at the end, he came up to me and he was like, "Oh, I really enjoyed that. It was much calmer, much less dominating. They had this experience together where it levelled them all and they actually had fun. It was brilliant." And I said to the teacher, "It's very rewarding. It's very rewarding training these guys." He says, "Oh, do you think so?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, when they come back next week, it'll be just the same, and we'll have to go through it all the same. And it's always this reset." But I said, "Well, we just keep doing it. We just keep doing it."
Yeah.
It was brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah.
I miss those days a little bit. That interaction of exercise and the outdoors was so good for people's mental well-being and just levelling out that need to, of tension within a social structure.
I think it comes back to the point you said earlier. The human brain still needs that. And even though we can assist ourselves with technology that we spoke about today, the human brain still needs that neuro connection with each other.
And a bit of resistance, a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, and a bit of a debate. You and I have had countless debates and at the pub or out for dinner. But you need that connection with people.
How will AI help those people, those charities? Yes, the AI can help the charity, it can improve CX, it can improve understanding of, how to prioritise investments, this sort of thing. The actual people looking to re-engage in the workforce, who have skills and are motivated and want to engage, but maybe feel as though they don't fit in or the workplace isn't inclusive. Their own disability gives them anxiety going on the tube or engaging, in an office. What can AI do there? Are there initiatives that these charities could be using this technology to support inclusivity?
Absolutely, and that's absolutely the plan. What we're doing at the charity is, can we, as an example, program a model for somebody, a person with abilities, as I like to say, or a person with diverse abilities. How can they use AI to help them? So as an example, I'm autistic, can you help write me a CV? Or I'm dyslexic, can you help write me a CV? And then it could come back with some framing to help, right? And I think that would reassure somebody that actually there's confidence, there's a bit of a confidence boost. There is a CV that I can use for me. Right?
This problem is a global problem by the nature of human diversity. And we're seeing, different approaches globally to AI. And China and municipal government in China is doing phenomenal amounts of work with elderly people and supporting inclusivity of and enabling people to work and be part of it. What we've also seen out of China recently is the DeepSeek technology, which is a subject that needs to be handled quite sensitively. But there's no doubt that DeepSeek has emerged an agile, performant language model in a very hardware-efficient way, which indeed knocked $1 trillion off NVIDIA's market capital in a very short amount of time. I'm sure it'll recover. This is not investment advice, but I'm sure the reality of GPU architecture as an enabler for AI, that's going to evolve, and we know NVIDIA is building some amazing technology. But I've never seen IBM act so quickly in supporting DeepSeek. And its agility to bring DeepSeek onto Watson X, I thought, was quite remarkable. What's your take?
I think the thinking there is what they did is proved that small language models can work. And from an IBM perspective, we have customers that wanted to use IBM's governance and work with Watson X because it's trusted. So we rapidly responded and made sure that Watson X can work with DeepSeek. And I think that's another endorsement of IBM's open approach. So we've got a number of people already using it.
I mean, my experience of building systems using language models, I'm realising that as you get more higher value use cases, the language model narrows down.
Less of a scraper and more
much more concentrated.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's much better at doing less things, but does those less things well.
But the important thing to note there, Ian, is it takes time and money to get
Oh,
there. And that's
100%.
what people don't necessarily see when you get that model humming. It's taken a lot of time and energy and investment and evolution to get there.
I've seen my experience of the granite models is when handling RAG, retrieval augmented generation, for integers, for numbers, anything associated with structured content, those models are the most performant, the most efficient. So if you're in a data center environment or you want to use AI to retrieve structured information, numbers, tables, it's amazing. If you want to make your AI look like a human and operate in a pseudo-emotional way, then I would move towards Llama, GPT. DeepSeek seems to be somewhere around that, but also has the ability to do the numbers. But I can certainly see specialization in language models happening, which does make me think, Steve, that some form of AI platform that allows dynamic switching of language models or multimodal system that you're using from different things at the same time feels like the right investment. Do you know what I mean? Like a What's the Next plane that allows you to plug and play with different language models dynamically feels like the right investment for longevity in AI in enterprise.
Yeah, and when you come back to those use cases, we're working with companies that build tractors right now. And if you think about edge computing and Internet of Things, as it used to be called, these companies now are heavily relying on AI models to do things like predictive maintenance. And I know that's a use case that's been known, but before it was about predictive analytics, now it's about predictive intelligence. And they can start to see across all of their tractors of what's going on. They can start to predict not just maintenance, but they can start to share data with each other. And I love this predictive intelligence in the automotive space. I think it's going to be huge.
The DeepSeek on What's an X, do you think that transparency that DeepSeek offers, do you believe will go into more transparent language models and openness? Or is there still a place for closed models like we're seeing in GPT? And
I think there's still a place. There's still a place for closed models in certainly certain industries in the enterprise, because you have to have that governance in some use cases.
As we've talked through today, it's reminded me of our previous conversation about 3 months ago, 3 months ago you said you wouldn't get on an airplane piloted by an AI pilot. With everything that you've learned and the technology developed in the last 3 months, where are you on autonomous vehicles and AI making active decisions? What's your feeling on, have there been improvements in safety, guardrails, ethics, control? We've seen some high profile, actually, aeronautical disasters in the US with helicopters and airplanes. Does AI start to play a more compelling place in autonomous transportation? Is trust building in AI since we last spoke?
I think it is in those use cases where it's needed. My own views, my own personal view is I still would not get in a car and go to town with you without you or I driving it. I just wouldn't. And that's my personal. Some people would say, yeah, let's give it a go. Right? I was having this conversation the other day with somebody and they said, have you ever ridden a roller coaster at a funfair? I said, many times. They said, no one's driving that, are they?
But the idea is it's meant to be terrifying.
And I said, yeah, and it's glued to a rail.
Yeah.
And it's got a rail on it. So there's lots of debate points. But I said to this individual, I said, I wouldn't get in a car and go to town if I wasn't behind the wheel or, you were behind the wheel. That's the same as a plane. Yeah.
My friend, I did a university reunion, my friend Richard Dawson, he's a barrister in vehicle and car, driving law. I do want to get him on for a conversation about the legal implications of autonomous vehicles and crashes.
It's a great conversation, isn't it? Because if you put you're behind the wheel and you put autopilot on and you scratch your alloy and it curbs it. Let's keep it nice. And you curb all of your wheels. Whose fault?
Who knows? Because ultimately, if the driver is still accountable for the outcome financially and insurance-wise, then in some ways, why would a driver trust an autopilot? Then you're into various different trajectories of trust and challenges.
And I can scrape my own wheels, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that'll be a great conversation. I just need to convince him to do it because, and this is this interesting challenge at the moment, and it brings us back to the start of the conversation. AI is emerging from the data center in many ways. There's a huge amount of AI in the data center, has been for a while, but now it's bridging the consumer mind. So many people who watch baseline content, they're not deep, hardcore technologists. They're people who are worried about the impact of AI on humanity and jobs. Can governments leverage AI to create effective defense? Do you know?
Well, yeah.
Can we generate power?
We were talking about earlier. AI now, even in your phone, can make the pictures that you and I take, kids or family, whatever, look absolutely 100% professional. You can move stuff around. That's all AI. It's already built in.
That brings questions on. Is the internet real anymore? But that's a big conversation. But in the last 3 months, since we spoke, you've been heavily and are heavily involved in government and the business policies within the government. You're seeing, we've seen a lot of disruption within governance of the UK. Without getting into the politics of it, we're seeing a lot of doubt and questioning. A lot of people actually leaving the UK. There's what I would say is there are uncertainties.
There are, but one thing I'm certainly reassured by is how serious government are taking AI in terms of the investment they're putting into it.
I'm certainly seeing that.
Yeah.
In fact, in the last 20 years, I've never seen a technology system be so respected by the government, embraced.
Yeah.
Embraced.
Yeah.
I think there's a feeling. The US have certainly led that conversation. The UK sees the need. We're seeing China creating some amazing innovation. Europe seems to be certainly aware that something needs to be done. The UK is
AI regulation in Europe. You've got the AI.
EUI Act.
Yeah.
So back to the finalising question that we always asked. With everything that's happened in the last 3 months, your original position was that AI is going to lead us to utopia. I'm interested to know whether you're still utopic, and where's your trajectory of thought? Is it more positive, more negative? Is it neutral? Where are you and why?
Way more positive, because I think that the more heavily involved you get in with people who are adopting AI, I'm seeing much less of what people read on the news, and I'm seeing much more goodness in terms of how people are using it, because the awareness is not just like a ChatGPT interface to help you do your exams, right? It's much more around some of the use cases that we talked about earlier. How can people use it to benefit their lives? How can people use it to better their lives or better their hand? And for me, I'm very, I like to do a lot of give back. And for me, if I can watch technology that I build have good, positive influence, good karma.
If you could change one thing about the trajectory of AI today, what would it be?
Strengthening the governance. I think we should put more focus on strengthening governance. There's a lot of focus on it, don't get me wrong, and we've got some of the best products in the marketplace that govern AI, but not just change the trajectory. I would say where does it need a continued applied focus, and it's around the governance.